Okay. Want to thank you all. Want to thank you all for being here today, and it's a testimonial to your commitment to be successful in this business just by showing up. And Tracy made a great comment. She said, I always get something good out of your classes. Sometimes I get a lot, sometimes just a couple of nuggets, but they're all worth, attending to. I lost the, anyway. So I appreciate the attitude that you bring by showing up and participating. And some great material we're going to cover today. I'm still kind of waiting for a couple people to work their way in here. Jeannie. Yes. Oh, yeah, we're recording. Thank you. Good catch, though. No, I appreciate that. We neglected to do that one time. And about partway through, we found out that it wasn't working. So, okay. Today we're going to talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart and to yours. Everything we do, everything you guys do to generate prospects, you put stuff out there and you hope people respond to it. You put out ads, you post things on the internet, you use social media. You put all this stuff out there in the hopes that somebody will respond to you. When you cold call, you're cold calling and hoping somebody, you're going to get a live one partway through your calling session. This is the exact opposite. This is handling inquiries. Now it's the other way around. The shoe was on the other foot. Now you have someone who's contacting you in response to your internet ad, your print ad, your sign that you have on your property. Quoting Walt Klein, you'd have to have a head of lettuce to not stop whatever you're doing and focus on that inquiry call. Because here's somebody that's initiating contact to you and wants information about property that you have advertised, a sign that they've seen. Let me give you some handouts to make this. I know, Mike. We're converting. We're adapting. You'll be proud.
Okay. And we don't even have a recycling bin here, Mike.
Well, the new office is going to be a lot different for a lot of people. Trust me.
I keep all my handouts and I look at them.
That's good. Because keep them. You're not going to get any more. Just so you know.
Come see me when Mike's not around. I might be able to help you out.
There you go. There you go.
Send us the PDF.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Send the PDF.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll print them.
Yeah, I have a confidentiality agreement you all need to sign, so keep me out of trouble here. Okay. When you get an inquiry, when somebody contacts you, again, I'm repeating myself here, you want to focus on this. This is whatever else you're doing goes on hold, and you give this person the ultimate level of your concentration and commitment to try to help them become prospects. At this point, they're just callers. So basically, there's a couple things you need to be aware of. There's some basic awarenesses of converting leads into appointments. When a person calls, they're not an appointment yet. They just want information. The reason they called you is they want some information from you. In the old days, the main reason they called, they wanted the address. But the address now is everybody's got it, so it's not a problem. By the way, there is a sign-in sheet around out there. If anybody hasn't signed in, please do so. Okay, some basic awarenesses. And Aiden, let me give you a handout so this will make sense for you.
Thank you, Larry.
You bet. By the way, Aiden's got his first open escrow. Things are moving along. Things are moving along well. Reached agreement on request for repairs, so
Yes.
and property appraised, so two hurdles out of the way. 2 hurdles out of the way. Okay, so basic awarenesses about leads is, and the way this form is broken down, it's basic awarenesses about leads and inquiries, and what's the point? Let me ask you a question. Just throw a number out at me. When a person calls off a sign or an internet lead or a print ad or any other form of advertising you put out there, what percentage of the time do you think that caller ultimately buys the property that they're calling on?
What percentage?
Maybe 1%.
Yeah.
10%.
What? Mike's an optimist.
2%.
5%. According to NAR, it's somewhere between 2 and 5%. Now, it's probably a little bit higher now because people have access to more of the details than they did before. But still, the number is low, no matter how you look at it. Even with Mike's 10%, it's still a low number. That means 90% aren't going to buy the property that they're calling on or inquiring about. So with that in mind, one of the basic awarenesses is they do not buy the house they're inquiring about. We already said 95% of the time, but they're still interested in buying something, or if they have a property to sell, if you get an inquiry, sellers make inquiries on ads too, because they're thinking about interviewing an agent to represent them in the sale. So I've had a lot over my real estate career. I had sellers come to my open houses to interview me in a casual way, just to see how you handle yourself. So you got to look at every one of those people that come through the door. They're prospects, and they could be seller prospects, it could be buyer prospects. Emily, thank you very much for verifying what I've already told the group. That I can count on you to walk in.
You're good?
Anyway, so if the awareness is they do not buy the house they inquire about, the point is, don't try to sell it to them. Don't try to sell, you can't sell a house over the phone anyway. Actually, you can, and I've done it, but only to my investor clients, because they're just numbers people. You can sell a house to, Larry, have you looked at it? Does it pencil out? Let's make an offer and see if we can buy it. Yeah, you can do that. But most of the time, people don't buy over the phone. So don't try to sell them a house. And by the way, if you're going to meet somebody at a property, they inquire about a house, and they're interested in it enough for you to go show it to them, never, ever, ever say, and I've said it, I know I learned everything the hard way. I told a buyer one time, because I thought I knew what they liked, and I said, quote, "You're going to love this house." Don't ever say that. Don't ever say that, even if you're 100% convinced. Because if for whatever reason they don't love that house, from that point going forward, you don't have any credibility with those folks. Larry, you said I'm going to love this house. I hate it. Well, I kind of thought you would. Now, we all have a tendency to let our own preferences and our likes creep in there, and I think, well, I love this house. You should love it too. It's not the way it works. So knowing that, here's one. When people want information and you want to get information from them, here's what they'll tell you. Here's what we want. Give us some basic information about the house. We're going to drive by it. If we like it, we will call you back. That's right up there with the checks in the mail, and I'll still respect you in the morning, as the biggest lies ever told. They don't call you back. So knowing that they're not going to call you back, try to get their contact information. Now with the technology you have today, with your phones, you typically get a phone number. Sometimes you get a name, sometimes not. But always try to get their basic contact information. We're going to talk about how to do that in just a minute. Here's kind of an odd thing to say. They do not know what they want to buy. They think they know what they want to buy. Here's what most of you experienced agents know already. People buy properties that they get a feeling for more than anything. I've taken buyers out and shown them, they said, "Larry, we've got to have a 4-bedroom house. We got 3 kids, we promised them all they're going to have their own bedroom. So if we make this move, only 4-bedroom houses." I took people out here in Scripps, I showed them every 4-bedroom house on the market that fit their parameters, and didn't find one that they got a feel for. We're driving back to the office, and I'm driving down the street, we drive by an open house. And the people went, "Larry, what's that house?" And I said, "It looks really nice." And I said, "Well, it is a very nice home, and it's a big house, but it's only got 3 bedrooms." Can we look at it? Of course we can look at it. One of the early skills that you develop in real estate is you become the master of the U-turn. And so, I mean, I know, I don't buy cars based on mileage. I want to know what the turning radius is, you know. So anyway, did a U-turn, pulled up in front of the house, walked in. They loved it. I mean, literally, they fell in love with this house. Went out back. I mean, we're walking out, getting in my car, we're going back to the office, and they said, Larry, we want to make an offer on this house. I felt an obligation to point out the obvious. I said, well, just in case you folks lost count, there's only 3 bedrooms in the house. Do you notice that, right? And they said, oh, yeah, the 2 girls can share a room. Threw them under the bus in a heartbeat because they got a feeling for this house. So when I say they don't know what they want to buy, they have an idea, but ultimately, so many times, and you know this, your clients ultimately buy a property that doesn't even fit the description they gave you. So be prepared for that. Okay. So don't even ask them. We'll talk about that in a minute too. They are considering other properties, by the way. If they're calling on ads, they're considering other properties. They didn't just find a single property. Maybe it can happen. But always ask, you know, when you're talking to folks and you're answering their questions about a property, if you reach a point where it becomes apparent to them and to you that the house they're calling on, they're in the 95% group, where it's not the house that they ultimately want to buy, and they're all done, they say, well, you know, thanks for the information, Larry. Yeah, it's not going to work out for us. You have to be foolish to say, oh, okay, well, great, have a nice day, and hang up. You got to make the extra effort. Folks, I know that you're probably looking at other ads on other properties. Tell me, what other properties are you looking at? I have all the information right here in front of me. I can save you a bunch of calls. And maybe save you a worthless trip driving by a property that won't fit what you're looking for. So let me share my expertise. I know this market. What else have you picked up that you think you're interested in? Well, what about the one at 1234 Spring Street there? Well, I got the information right here in front of me. Yeah, that's also a 3-bedroom house. Oh, okay. Now you're connecting with people. And the purpose of this conversation is just to establish with that potential client that you are an expert on the area of their interest. It's critical that they get it, that you are an expert on it. If they ask you a bunch of questions and you keep saying, I don't know, but I'll find out. I don't know, but I'll find out. You're done. They don't want that. They want someone that really knows the area of interest. So ask them what other ads are calling on, and if they find one they like, that's great. Which other properties are you calling on? Number 5 awareness is you cannot sell a house over the phone. We've already talked about that. So don't try. Get face to face. And this is, you know, anytime you have any form of prospecting you do, the mission, the goal of that prospecting effort is really only one thing. And that's to get that prospect to agree to meet with you face to face. Because that's where you go to work. That's where you demonstrate that you're an expert in the area of their interest. You connect with them, and then they become, instead of a prospect, they become a client. And we always love it when they become past clients and repeat clients. So, number 6, know the inventory before asking the questions. This is critical, and I'll give you the point here. Caravan. Caravan is a wonderful tool used properly. I always laugh because over the years I've talked to people and I go on Caravan, come back, and you say, hey, how was Caravan in Scripps Ranch today? And the agent will say, oh, Caravan was great today. Sally had her property on Caravan. She had a full-on chicken lunch for everybody that came. And by the way, Joe had a property. He was giving lottery tickets to the first 25 people that came. Okay. A professional agent, how did Caravan go today? Really well. Aiden has a brand new listing. Got it priced right. 4 bedrooms, backs up to the open space. I mean, this house is going to sell immediately. In fact, yeah, really a great listing. Oh, by the way, I saw Tracy had a listing too. A little out of my client's price range, but boy, oh boy, does that house show beautifully. I'm going to see if I can get her to let me do an open house on it. Professional agents, that's how they approach Caravan. The amateurs, the people that are not in this business for any length of time, they're there for the lunch or the lottery ticket. So just know that's the reality. Pardon?
I like that.
It's true. I mean,
Lunch or the lottery.
yeah, how can you go wrong? Now, I'm not opposed to having lunch or getting a lottery ticket, but I'm out there looking at the properties. The point I'm trying to make here is when a client calls you, a prospect, and they ask you questions about inventory and stuff like that, and you go through the process, and in talking with them, you confirm that they're in the 95% group where this house they're calling on is not right, and you confirm that. The last thing you want to do is something like this. Okay, well, we've pretty much confirmed this one's not going to work for you. Tell me a little bit, let me ask you some questions about what you are looking for. I've heard agents go through this. Okay, 4 bedrooms, okay, got it, yep. Large lot, quiet cul-de-sac street, okay. Got that tile roof, okay, got that, got this big list. Okay, folks, I got a big list now. I know exactly what you're looking for. I'm going to hang up now and see what I can find. And then I'm going to give you a call back and share with you what I found. That's not effective. That's not telling that prospect that you're a pro. The way you confirm and you communicate that you're a professional is you go through that shopping list. Yeah, I got all that stuff. Folks, good news is I got a pretty good list here of what you're looking for. I can think of 3 properties right now that fit that description. 2 of them, one of them just came on the market. I just saw it on Caravan day before yesterday. I can think of 3 properties right now. Let me get that information to you, or better yet, let's get together, go through the details, and let's go look at those 3. Now you're telling them, I've got my finger on the pulse of that market. I know what's going on there. So no, I don't need to hang up and see if I can find what you're looking for. I already got it. That's how you communicate you're a pro, you're a professional. You got to have the right attitude. When they call, when you answer the phone, you got to have the right attitude. And for lack of a better way of saying how to have the right attitude, here's a good mindset. They have my money in their pocket. They've got a lot of my money in their pocket. And knowing that, if that's the attitude you have when you answer the phone, it's not going to be, oh yeah, that one's only got 3 bedrooms. Sorry, it's not going to work for you. See ya. That's not what you're going to do. You're going to take the steps necessary to develop that connection. Love to use that word, connection. Work that into the conversation, and then you connect with the people. So, number 8, every lead, I'll add the word potential. Every lead is a potential future commission. People will call today, but they're not ready to buy today. We got 8 months to go on our lease, but we're kind of getting our feet in the water, want to kind of get a feel for the market. They're not ready to do anything today, but they will be in a period of time. And by the way, if they got 8 months to go on a lease, they should start looking seriously in about 4 to make it all make sense. So, stay in touch with them. And with the tools you got today, I'm not going to preach to the choir here, but all of you know this. KV Core is the most amazing platform I've ever seen. And I've been doing this for longer than some of you have been alive. So that is an amazing tool. And the more you learn about it, the more you're going to want to use it. And I'm preaching to the choir because so many of you, Brian's used KV Core right from the get-go, and it's really, really paid off in spades. It's really been an amazing tool. Number 9. Here's a wild idea. Internet causes inquiries. Well, of course we know it does. So you've got to have a way to follow up and work internet leads. And people that make internet inquiries are not known for patience. When they make an internet inquiry, if you don't get back to them for 2 days, they're gone. They've moved on. So have a standard boilerplate response when you get an inquiry. If you're in the middle of something, you're going to do an inspection and you can't get in touch with the people right away, fire off that quick little internet response lead. Got your inquiry. I'm anxious to share some of the information with you. I'm at appointments for a couple of hours. I'll give you a call this afternoon, something like that. Now you've made that connection. Now Otherwise, if you neglect them for a few hours, a half a day, a whole day, they've moved on. Lastly, you got to follow a step-by-step process. You've got to get the caller to want to meet with you. You've got not to agree to meet with you. You want them to want to meet with you. I've had conversations with people, and the one thing I want more than anything else is for them to come into my office to meet with me. Because lookers don't want to come to your office. Buyers do. They got a problem, they need a solution. You want to talk to those folks. So, having said that, let's talk about effectively communicating with people. This is.
Any inquiries, do we care if they're working with an agent or not?
Oh, we're going to get to that. Oh, we definitely care. And by the way, every prospect that calls, the first thing you're going to do is when you ask them, you working with an agent? Oh yeah, I got an agent. Because they don't want to talk to you anymore. I mean, that's going to be their defense mechanism. I've had people say, yeah, we have an agent. 15 minutes later, they don't have an agent.
Bless you.
Pardon?
You're right. No, I just thought it was bless you.
Oh, salud. Yeah.
Or they have an agent, but they're in the Bay Area, and they were just
Yeah.
using that as a thing. Or they have a cousin or brother or friend in Michigan, but not in California. You know?
Well, you
They're
just
just
get
using
yourself
it.
on the foot,
Yeah.
which is better, and now they reveal that they can't work with you.
Right. Well, to Larry's point, it's a reflex no. That's the
Exactly.
way they're going to say in order to kind of say, hey, back off for just a quick second.
Right. And that's exactly what they do. And, you know, I've heard it countless times. And about half the time they really do have another agent. That's 50% of the time they really don't. That's just something they throw out there to hold you back. So, effective communication, basically the four components of communication. There's a sender of a message, a receiver of a message, there's the message itself, and then there's a method of communicating the message. So, when a caller calls in and makes an inquiry about your property, who is the sender of the message? A lot of people will say, oh, well, the person that's calling is sending you a message. No. You are the sender of the message. You are receiving the call, but you have a message that you want to communicate to that prospect. They're the receiver of the message. The buyer is the receiver, the caller. The message you want to communicate is basically, I like to refer to it as CITO. CITO, which stands for, say it out loud, Jeannie. Come into the office. Thank you, girl. Come into the office. If I can communicate that message to every prospect, meet me at my office. That's where we can go to work. The message I want to communicate is CITO, and I could say, you know, oh yeah, I hear you're looking for property in Scripps Ranch. Why don't you do? Okay, come on, come into my office. Well, that's not going to work right at that point. You need to develop some kind of rapport and relationship with them. And the best way to do that is to follow the method of communicating the message, which is offer a solution to their problem. If they've got a problem, and they do, or else they wouldn't be calling you, they got a problem. And if you can tell them in an effective way, folks, bad news, you got a problem. Good news, I've got a solution for you. And I have it in my office. So let's do this. Come into my office. I can provide you the solution to your problem. Life is good. But it takes a little more dialogue to do that. But that's the basic point that you're trying to communicate. You want to get the caller to want to come into your office or meet with you. There are times when you will not meet at the office. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. I want them to come into the office. I want them to come in to be qualified. By the way, if you really want to end a conversation really quickly, say something like this. I want you to come into the office so I can get you qualified. Who wants to be qualified? Nobody. Nobody wants to be qualified. We want to get them qualified, though. So that's not the hook. Come into my office, I'll get you qualified. By the way, sometimes I've had some people that have no idea what they can qualify for. They're not working with a lender. You know what? Yeah, we're not really sure what we can afford. Not a problem. Let me talk to Matt Moreno or one of his team. have them meet with us together when you come into the office. They'll give you a better idea of what financing options are available and what you can really afford, because there's no point looking at a property that you can't afford. I learned everything the hard way. I used to ask people, what's your price range? The stupidest question in the world. What's your price range? Oh, we're up to 850,000. So I take them out and I show them a bunch of properties for 850. And they find two that they love and they make an offer on one. And we open escrow and the lender says, 850? Huh, are you kidding me? These folks can qualify for 725, maybe. Don't make that mistake. So you do want to get them qualified so you show property that they can actually buy. The thing that will get them to come into your office is, folks, you come into my office, we're going to sit down, we're going to examine the inventory that fits the parameters that you've given me you're looking for, and I'm not going to pick the properties we look at. No, you are. It makes no sense for me to pick the properties that I'm going to show to you. If I'm the buyer, I can go ahead and do that, but I'm not. So I'm going to get you involved in the selection process, and we're going to pick the properties that you want to see, and those are the ones that we're going to go out and look at. We're going to look at the few that you want. By the way, just that little concept of getting the buyer involved in the selection process is wonderful. It's a win-win situation. When they're involved in the selection process, if they pick 6 properties, we want to see these 6, and you go out and one of them they absolutely hate. They look at the property and they don't like the looks of it, they don't like the location and nothing else about it. If you have picked the 6 properties and you take them out and show them one that they hate, they look at you and they go, gee, Larry, what'd you show us this house for? This isn't even close. Are you listening to what we're saying? We hate it. I'm sorry, folks. By the way, listing agents have to have a specialty in their career. They got to be really good at creative writing. I've read some descriptions of properties that I've selected for clients to look at, and I've tasteful, neutral decor. And I've opened the door and take my clients and oh my God, we're in the wrong house. We're in the wrong house. I don't know how I did that, because this doesn't have tasteful, neutral decor. It's just horrible.
We also have to use it photography.
And it could be, exactly. It depends on the angle, I always like the ones when they say, yeah, it's got an ocean. You have a glimpse of the ocean, which means if you go in the upstairs guest bathroom and stand on the toilet and look out the window and the reflection of the neighbor's window, you can see the water. That's a glimpse. Okay. I always love it when people do that. But anyway, the situation is when the buyer gets involved in the selection process and they pick that same house and they hate it just as much, but then they go in and they go, oh, wow, we got fooled on this one, didn't we? It's not your fault anymore. You're not the one they're blaming anymore. So getting them involved in the selection process, very powerful. Okay, that's what's going to get people to want to come in. Communication occurs when I can get you to understand what I already know exactly as I understand it. That's effective communication. Communication occurs when I can get you to understand what I know exactly as I understand it. As compared to, there are some people who could hear you speak 1,000 words and still not understand you. You will run into people and you'll be talking to them and sharing your expertise with, and you're getting a blank look because they're not getting it. And by the way, when you communicate with people and they're not getting the message you're trying to communicate, it's not their fault. It's your fault. You are the one responsible for effective communication to make sure that they get it. And you need to test it from time to time to make sure that they're on track with you. I like this. I know that you believe you understand what you think I said, but I'm not sure you realize that what you heard is not what I meant. Makes me smile just to say that out loud. But it's kind of basically double talk. The whole point is, effective communication, it's incumbent upon you to do your responsibility, fulfill your responsibility to effectively communicate with the prospect. I like this little example. Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. And you look at the guy on the right, and it looks like there's 4 pieces of wood. The guy on the left, on the right, he's looking at the same thing. It's a great little illusion, isn't it? I think it's one of my favorites. I always like that because, we used to say, you believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. Nowadays, with AI and everything else going on, you can't believe anything, what you hear or see. So anyway, I like that. That's a great little illustration. We're going to talk about how to talk to people, how to use what we call the inquiry track. To be effective in communicating with people, first of all, reality, all of you experienced agents already know this. In every relationship, not just business, but in every relationship, but we're talking about real estate now, in every working relationship, someone's going to be in control. For you to be effective and be successful in helping your clients solve their problem, you got to be the one that's in control. And I've dealt with a lot of people that I would describe as control freaks. I recognize them right away because I am one. I mean, I recognize them. This is going to be a problem. This person is way too much like me, But it's easy. If you give up control early in the relationship, it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to get it back. But if you take control early in the relationship, it's easy to maintain it. And then you've got a much more effective working relationship with that client going forward. Now they're deferring to you for advice instead of trying to be the agent and giving you advice as to what you should be doing. And you've all done it. You've all had the control freak client that tells you how to do your business. You can still do the deal, but it's a lot more difficult and not anywhere near as much fun. So the first thing you got to do is gain control. To do that, the second part is you got to qualify in the sense of you want to separate lookers from buyers. My early days in real estate, anybody that called me and said, hey, we want to look at property in Scripps Ranch. Buyer. I've got a buyer. I got a buyer. No. Sometimes I had lookers. But people will never call you and say, hey, listen, we'd like to go out and have you drive us around all day showing us a bunch of property, but we're not buyers, we're just lookers. They're not going to say that. I always used to, in a perfect world, every looker would have a red piece of yarn tied around their finger. And every buyer would have a piece of green yarn. And they'd walk in and you'd go, okay, all you folks with the red yarn, stand over here to the side. I love you. I'm going to stay in touch with you. I'll be in touch. Don't worry. But I got to work with the folks with the green yarn right now because they're the real buyers. I didn't get that. And I spent a lot of time showing property to lookers. And I finally learned out the hard way. You got to learn how to separate the two groups. The third part is trading information. This is why they called you in the first place. They want information from you. I always like to use the initials WIFM. What's in it for me? When they call, if you don't have what's in it for them, that conversation is going to end. And by the way, when we talk about, I kind of skipped over it, and I normally use the whiteboard, but in the interest of time, I'll just give this to you quickly. When we talk about qualifying people, we're not just qualifying them on financial ability. There are 3 components of qualification. Financial ability, for sure, that's the one that the lender's going to help you with. Motivation is the second component, and the third one is urgency. And when you have all 3 of those components combined together, they are financially qualified, they're motivated, and there's a degree of urgency. Those folks you move in with, you handcuff yourself to them until you get into escrow. I mean, those are the people that deserve your full attention. So always know the qualification, not just financial, motivation and urgency are also key components. And once you go through the trading information part, answering their questions, step number 4 is you want to close for the appointment. You want them to either CITO, come into your office, or meet them at a property, or in that wonderful situation where during the conversation they say something like, yeah, we're not ready to buy yet. We've got a house we need to sell in order to buy. Oh, gee, you have a couple of problems. Good news is I got solutions to both of those problems. The only thing better than having a client that wants to buy or sell is when you have one that wants to sell and buy. Obviously, you already know that. So, close for the appointment, CAITO. Here's how the track works. Gaining control is an art, if you will. You will develop your own style. You'll develop your own technique, your own dialogue. I always tell everybody, be yourself. Be who you are. But the basic concept is, if I get a call, and you know, in this example, the greeting might go something like this. If you're answering the phone in Fallbrook, for example, you could say, "Good morning, Remax Connections, may I help you?" But if they're calling you on your cell phone, which almost everybody does now, if I look at my call and I've got caller ID and it's somebody I don't know, or a phone number I don't recognize, they're going to get my professional voice. It's going to be, "This is Larry with Remax Connection. Can I help you?" And then when they say, "Larry, you know, this is your Uncle Bob." "Oh, Bob, I didn't know it was you." You know, he said, "Wow, you sounded really professional when you answered the phone." "Yeah, that's because I didn't know it was you." So what's on your mind? You know, but always begin with the professional approach when you don't recognize the call, because it could be a bona fide legitimate lead. Caller ID is great. So may I help you? We created a new word. I love this word. Gratiscribe. You know, gratiscribe is a great word. You won't find it in the dictionary. Not yet. One of these days it might make it in there. There's all kinds of words work their way in the dictionary. But gratiscribe is nothing more than a combination of gratitude and describe. And it's very simple. Here's gratiscribe. Thank you for calling, the gratitude part. So I don't make a mistake, would you describe the property, the ad, the property you're calling on? If you only have one ad running, you only got one listing, first listing, your only listing, you got nothing else going on. You're not going to say, "Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're calling on. It's the only deal I got going." You're never going to say that. In fact, you're going to imply in a very subtle way just the opposite. "Hey, I'm a busy professional realtor, you know, and I got a lot going on. So do me a favor, so I don't make a mistake, tell me a little bit about the ad you're calling on." And then they'll say, "Oh yeah, that's the one that says it's got a spectacular backcountry view," something like that. Okay, I know what property you're calling on now. Do you mind holding for just a moment? Let me get that information and get right back to you. And you could at that point, if you only have a phone number, you might ask, "By the way, as I said when I answered the phone, my name's Larry McGee. What is yours?" Because if they give you a name, you want to use their name in the conversation. It helps connect you with them. I had a guy call me one time. He said, "Yeah, my name's Chuck." And I said, "Okay, Chuck, well, just a second. You hold on just a moment, let me get that information." Came back on the phone. "Hey, Chuck, yeah, I got that information right here. You know, what can I tell you about that property?" We carried on conversation. I called him Chuck like 10 times during a 5-minute conversation and stuff. And we connected. And then I said, "Why don't you do this, Chuck? Why don't you come into the office?" And he goes, "Larry, that's great. You know, can my wife and I come in tomorrow?" "Yeah, we can come in tomorrow. What time?" "Great. Chuck, I really look forward to meeting you and your wife." And he goes, "Oh, Larry, before we go, I got to tell you, my name's not Chuck.
Yeah.
My name's not Chuck." He said, "I just put that out there, you know." But now, so I kind of laughed. Sure enough, the receptionist called me in my office and said, "Larry, your clients are here." I got up, walked out to the front desk and said, "Chuck, so nice to meet you." And he laughed. He pulled his hand back. Became great clients. In fact, it became personal friends, really, but it started off with. So anyway, ask them if they mind holding. By the way, who likes to be on hold? Nobody. Don't. If you already know what they're calling on, here's when you put them on hold, this is how you take control. You mind holding for just a moment? Okay, I'll hold for a minute. Now when you come back, you're in control. You put them on hold. By the way, studies have shown that if you put people on hold for more than about 10 to 15 seconds, their irritation level starts going up. And you come back on the line a minute later, they're not happy campers.
You need to tell AT&T that.
Ah,
Oh, I don't. I had to deal with AT&T recently, and then they kind of funny because they said, "Let us know. We don't want to put you on hold for long, so let us know what time you want us to call back. Are you in the Central Time Zone?" And I said, "No, I'm in Pacific Time Zone." Okay, this was a Thursday. What time on Sunday would you like us to call you back? Come on. But when you have a monopoly, you can get away with it. The water company doesn't try to sell you water. You know, they don't feel they need to be customer service oriented. So anyway, after to hold on for just a moment, and then come back on the line. And oh yeah, I'd be happy to get that information. Just a second. Let me get back to you here. Let me pull that information up. Ask people their names. This is just a little, 3 secrets to getting people's name and numbers. You got their numbers. By the way, if you get a block call, private call, and stuff like that, I hate those. Everybody does. But then I would say, you know what? I see that your number is blocked. Let me get that information. I'll come back on the line. What is your number there just in case we get cut off? And by the way, what is your name again? Just very casually. You're adding, by the way, my name is Larry and yours. What's that number there just in case? As an afterthought, oh, by the way, I didn't catch your name. Oh, okay, my name's Chuck. Okay, Chuck, got it. And then lastly, I'm just make it personable, social, not official, like you're at a cocktail party. I don't know if we're trying to say you should be slurring your words. I don't think that's what the point we're trying to make there. But the point is, make it casual, make it conversational. Getting people's names, once you have their name, use it in the conversation. It helps connect you with people. Okay, the track for asking what we call our 6 stock questions. And once you get this material, you're going to have these 6 stock questions ingrained in your mind. You're not going to have to even look at any notes or anything. It's going to be automatic. You know exactly what you're going to say and how you're going to say it, and it's going to come across as total just conversation. It's not an inquisition. It's carrying on a conversation. When people get it that you're literally, putting them under the gun and asking them a lot of questions in a very formal way, it does not work. It's got to be casual. So the track, number 1, ask the question. What is it about that property that caught your attention? Just simple. What can I tell you about the property? When they respond, regardless of what they say, and by the way, the moment that you start talking to them, you're making notes. Okay, he told me his name is Chuck. I wrote down Chuck. Looking in Scripps Ranch. They want a view. Whatever they say, listen to and acknowledge the answer. Yeah, it says in the ad that it's got a real nice view. Oh, so you're looking for a property with a view, correct? Yeah, that's a big component for us. Okay. So many people go down, so many agents just go down the list and start asking questions. They don't give the buyer or the caller any feedback that communicates that I'm really listening to what you're saying. That does not connect you with people either. So if nothing, just repeat back. So a view is a big thing with you folks, huh? That's something that's really important. Write down the answers. I already said, start taking notes from the very beginning. When they tell you something and you know it's a problem, today our big problem is inventory. Clearly, there's limited inventory. So when people call up and say, we're looking for, and they give you a specific property, it's got to be 4 bedrooms, want a single-story house, and we want to have a view and everything else. I already know there's limited inventory, and I already know what properties. I'm going to see and hear a problem in their answer. They're going to say something like, yeah, we're looking for this. They give you this big description, and you're thinking, that property is in very short supply right now. There are not a lot of properties that fit the description you just gave me. So I'm not going to try to deal with that problem right then. I'm making a note. I'm going to see and hear and feel their problem, but I'm not going to try to fix it right then. Do not try to deal with the problem now. Just go on to the next question. When you're all done with answering all their questions, you're going to come back and revisit those problems that you identified. You're communicating again that you're a pro, that you're an expert. You really know what you're doing. So go on to the next question. The essence of selling is not dealing with your problem. It's helping your client solve theirs. And that's what this is all about, is the client's got to get it that your mission is to solve their problem, period. Once they get that, you've got a client for life. Okay, let's talk about the 6 stock questions themselves. I love this. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. Because a lot of times you think, I did a great job, I communicated with these people. And then you find out later on they didn't get anything you said. And we've all had it happen. Because people, you'll be talking to them, you take that as meaning, I'm getting it, when half the time they're not. Great quote, though. Okay, the 6 stock questions. Number 1, when somebody calls me, the first question I ask is, what was it about that particular ad? What was it about that particular property? What was it that you saw posted on the internet that caught your attention? This is a critical question because everybody's got hot button issues. What was it about that particular property that caught your eye? The answer to that question you write down in capital letters because they're telling you this is a hot button issue with us. Second, okay, so you look at, I got to ask this question. How long have you been looking for a property with a view? We'll use a view as the example. Just out of curiosity, how long have you folks been looking for a property with a view? All conversational, just shooting the breeze. The answer can run from, we started today. We started today. You're our first call. We just decided. We're tired of renting. Okay, that's a great answer. I've heard people say things like, a couple years. So I'm back to qualification. I said motivation and urgency. Financial ability is at the top of the list. Motivation and urgency are right up there with it. Obviously, urgency hasn't been a problem for the last 2 years. Maybe it is now, though. So ask the question, how long have you been looking for a house? You got to ask the question is, and Sarah's already mentioned this, are you working with other brokers to find that perfect house? By the way, everybody is looking for a special house. It's special to them. It may not be all that special to you, but every buyer that calls is looking for a special house. It's special to them. So I've had people say, oh, yeah, well, we got an agent. Now, if they say, yeah, my agent is, one of our agents, oh, we're working with Jeannie Dominguez in your office. Oh, okay, well, Jeannie's great. You're in good hands and everything else, and I'm just going to support that and, have her give me a call. I'll be happy to share any information. I've had people say, oh, yeah, we have an agent. My mother, my brother, my son, my daughter. Okay, probably going to stick with the relatives because you almost have to. I'm not looking at you, Sarah. It just looks that way. I'm just looking at the door. Yeah, you can't fire family. Sometimes you'd like to, but you can't. Number 4. By the way, if the answer is yes, they say, oh yeah, we're working with an agent. I wouldn't say, well, have you signed anything with them at that point? No, that's pointless. I mean, that's just, what I would say is, if they told me they've been looking for 6 months, 3 months, whatever, and they say that, yeah, we are working with an agent, my standard question is, how's it working? How's that working out for you? And then I've had people say, well, I love it when they say, well, because they're telling you it's not working out. And then I've had people go on and say, well, he or she never seems to be available when we are. He or she doesn't return my calls very quickly. He or she is taking us out and showing us properties that aren't even close to what we're looking for. Now I might ask the question, well, sounds like you're not really totally satisfied with the service that you're getting. Have you signed any type of a document that obligates you to work with that agent? You have a contractual agreement with them. They say, oh, no. By the way, I've had people say, oh, no, and they actually did because they didn't know what they signed, but that's another story. Anyway, and I've had people, if somebody tells me they love their agent, they're happy, it's the day off, and they're just out calling on their own, I'm not trying to snake another agent's client because they're all going to tell you, hey, We called that guy Larry at Remax, and boy, he tried to get us to dump you and become. You've lost that agent. We'll never show your listing again. And if you ever bring them an offer on their listing, they're never even going to talk to you. So you don't ever want to do that. But there are times when people say, yeah, we've got an agent, they really don't, or it's not working. So take the time. Are you working with other brokers? And if the answer is yes, how's that working? Number 4, how many homes with a view have you actually looked at? Great question. 1, 2, okay. Oh, over the last year or so, probably 30. Totally different answer, totally different feel. And so you need to get an idea of what it is that you're doing, what it is that they're trying to do. Number 5, if they say, yeah, we've probably seen a dozen homes that fit what we're looking for and had a nice view. If somebody told you that, what would be an obvious question you would ask? Exactly. Well, in a roundabout way, that's exactly right. What prevented you from buying one of those? If you found 12, now in today's market, they could say, we tried to buy all 12. We tried to buy all 12, and 100K over list didn't get it done. So this market we're in right now, a lot of what we talk about in our program is intended to be applicable in any kind of market. But there are extreme markets that we've been in, like the one we're in right now with no inventory, where it distorts the normal way we do business. So you have to adapt to it. But in a normal market, if somebody said, yeah, we looked at 12 properties, and why didn't you buy one of those? And they say, well, we made a couple of offers, but they didn't stick. We lost out to some cash buyers, stuff like that. Okay, those are all legitimate questions, answers. Got to ask this question. I wouldn't quite say it like this. Do you own your home or are you renting? I would probably say my style would be something like, what's your current living situation? Do you own a home here in Happy Hollow, my fictitious community, Happy Hollow? And they go, no, we're renting a property, and we have a lease that's expiring in a few months. Okay, that tells you they got some motivation and some urgency. They may say, oh yes, we do own a home here. We bought one of the smaller homes when we first moved here, but we've had 2 children since then. We've outgrown the house, and we need to find a bigger home. Got to ask the question: are you going to need to sell the house that you currently have in order to buy? If the answer is, oh no, we're going to convert it to a rental, have it make an investment property, and we have the wherewithal to buy the new house without selling the old one, okay, that answers that question. If they go, oh yeah, we definitely need to sell this house in order to buy the replacement property. If somebody told you that they've been looking for a couple of months and they have a home they need to sell before they can buy, what would be an obvious question you might want to ask them? There you go. In the way I do it, I would say, oh, so you do have a home you need to sell in order to buy, right? Yeah, that's right, Larry. Just how long have you had it on the market? Not do you have it on the market? I always say, how long you had it on the market? And then you go, oh, no, we haven't got it on the market yet. You don't have it on the market yet? You have a home you need to sell in order to buy, and you're looking for a property to buy, but you have a home that you need to sell that's not even on the market. You can see the obvious problem. We know contingent offers in normal markets are difficult. In this market, almost impossible. So now I've identified another problem. A, they're looking for a special house, one with a view and limited inventory, and B, they got a house they need to sell in order to buy. Okay, I found 2 problems. I've set those aside because I'm going to come back and revisit those in a minute. Call that buyer conversion. So many people have this illusion that it makes sense to go out and find the dream house, find it, make an offer on it contingent on the sale of your house that's not even on the market for sale, and hope that the seller will accept it. I've seen markets, Mike has seen markets, all of you that have been around a while have seen markets where that can work. because inventory is through the roof. There's a ton of inventory, and homes are on the market for 3-6 months before they sell. I've seen that. So in that situation, it's got a little bit better chance. But when they tell me that they need to sell in order to buy, and their house is not currently on the market for sale, I'm thinking, okay, I've got a new set of problems that we need to talk about. Okay, buyer conversion. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Here's the point. We're at the trade information stage. This is why they called. They want to ask you questions about a property. You've got to be able to answer the question. We call it, what can I tell you about this house that you're calling on? Great question. What can I tell you about this house? They're going to ask you a question. I'll use this example. How many bedrooms does this house have? Fair question. How many bedrooms does this house have? Straight line communicate. Answer straight line communication, which means this. You ask me, how many bedrooms does the house have? And it's got 3. I'm going to say the house has 3 bedrooms. Non-straight line communicating, and a lot of people, particularly a lot of salespeople, do this, and it's so wrong. They ask the question, how many bedrooms does this house have? Non-straight line communication goes like this. Well, how many bedrooms do you need? How many bedrooms are you looking for? You might get away with that once or twice. Every time you ask them a question and you come back and ask a question without giving them the answer, it does not work. So straight line communicate, but then follow it up with the question. Folks, that particular house you're calling on does have 3 bedrooms. How does that work for your circumstances? Is that going to work for you? Do you need more? Now you're asking another question back again. But always straight line communicate. If you always answer every question with a question, be prepared to hear a dial tone. I'm kind of inclined to tell Mike he can't leave the class, but didn't think about it long. So answer the question and keep going through this process. Keep answering these questions until one of 2 things happen. You're going to confirm that they're in the 95% group where the house they're calling on is not going to work. Okay? Or you're going to narrow it down. And lo and behold, you know what, folks? This house, you're in that, I wouldn't say it this way, you're in the 5% group where the house you're calling on may actually be really right for you. So let's do this. Come into the office, we'll pull up a few others and look at them as well. Or if they have to, I can meet you at that property and show you that one. You find middle ground. And by the way, if they have a home they need to sell in order to buy, I wouldn't have a problem meeting them at their home to start the process. So I can bring some data to give them an idea what their home is currently worth, what it'll net them at the close of escrow based on fair market value, and that's how much they have going forward to buy the replacement property. So keep answering the questions. Keep answering their questions until you know that this probably is the house or definitely is not the house for them. One of 2 things will happen. Keep doing that until and at the end of this process, you're going to either confirm it's not the right house or it potentially is. Now you need to get their attention because when you were talking to them, you've identified some problems they have. You got to get their attention. Closing for the appointment is what we're talking about here. Getting their attention is critical. Now, I can tell you, the way to get the prospect's attention is so simple. It should automatically come to mind. And that is simply this. I'm using Mrs. Jones' call. Mrs. Jones, something you said earlier concerns me. You said, but now I pause. I don't even say you said. The more effective way I found to do it is, you know, Mrs. Jones, during our conversation, you said a couple of things that concern me. And you pause. What do you think happens when you say that? Pretend I'm talking to you. Brian, something during our conversation, a couple of things you brought up during our conversation concern me.
You say that to me a lot.
Yeah, well, huh?
You say that to me a lot.
I do.
But no, you listen more to you want to know what's going on.
It's like they know you're listening to them.
Exactly. And when you pause and you say, if I said to you, during our conversation, you said a couple of things that really concern me, and you pause, they're going to say, oh, really? What's that? And if they don't, if the pause gets awkward, then I will go on with, well, you said that you're looking for a very special home with a view and a location, and inventory is short right now, and you also said you have a home you need to sell in order to buy. So those are two things that I heard right there. But when you pause, they'll ask you the question. State the problem. Well, take your time here, recap what you've said, what they've said from your notes, and explain the problem. Mrs. Jones, you said you're looking for a very unique property, single-story, 4-bedroom homes on large lots with a view are in very short supply. And secondly, even if you found it, you have a home you need to sell in order to buy that home, and that's not even on the market for sale. Explain their problems to it. Take your time here, use your notes, recap what they said from your notes, and then explain the problems to them. A, you're looking for a special house. And by the way, I'm repeating myself, but every buyer is looking for a special house. It may be a cookie cutter conforming home in a small community and you think there's nothing special about it, but to that buyer, it's a special home. Mrs. Jones, you're looking for a very special home. And by the way, I might not say it like this. I think it's going to be unlikely that you're going to find that special house the way you're approaching this. Calling on ads, driving around calling on signs, finding property on the internet, yeah, you might, statistically, you might have a 2% chance of finding the exact right house doing it that way, but it's not the best way. And by the way, even if in this market, if you did find that perfect house that way, the problem is someone else probably already has it under contract. Somebody else in this market, how often do we hear that every day now? Yeah, you found the perfect house, but we've already got it under contract and we have 2 backup offers. So, and by the way, by just calling on ads and internet and signs, you're only looking at the tip of the iceberg. In a normal market, you've got an inventory platform that looks like a big giant triangle. And the properties that people are calling on only represent the very tip of that iceberg. For every property they're calling on, there might be 20 or 25 other properties that would be worthy of consideration. But doing it this way, they're not going to find it. The people that are going to find it are working with a professional realtor that will help them find that property, get it under contract before anybody else does. So, I offer a solution. Offer a solution. And I love this dialogue, I love this phrase, and I've said this to people. I said, you know what, folks, the way you're approaching this, you're really dramatically reducing the likelihood of finding that special home you're looking for and getting it bought for yourself. Here's what I would suggest you do, and whether you never talk to me again, here's a piece of advice I will give you. Find a qualified agent that knows the market in the area of interest. I would love for it to be me, but even if it's not, find that agent and become what I like to call a preferred client. Become a preferred client. Now, what's a preferred client? Well, that's someone who I dedicate my time and energy to help them find that special house. We get out in front of everybody else, and in this market we need to, and you're much more likely to get the special home you're looking for at the best price and terms by working with a professional agent that knows the area of interest, knows what's going on. And again, I would love for it to be me. And you said, you're not satisfied with the agent that you've been working with, or you don't have an agent. Let's do this. I'm going to close now. Why don't you do this? Why don't you come into the office? Let's meet at the office. Because here's what we're going to do. I'm not going to show you properties that I picked for you to look at. No. We're going to sit down. We're going to examine the inventory together. You're going to pick the ones that you want to look at, and those are the ones we're going to go see. Fair enough? I love fair enough. Because fair enough, I've never had anybody yet say to me, no, it doesn't sound fair. I love fair enough. It's a great little closing line. Fair enough? Love it. So, stop by the office, we'll have a cup of coffee, maybe, some people say the coffee here is too weak, so I've known who that is. Learn a little bit about you and what you're looking for. I'll get you a complete list of the homes that are available, and we'll go out and look at the ones that you like. Fair enough? I'll leave it up to you. Now you've identified their problems. You've offered the solution to their problems. You've told them that the solution is right here in the office. Needy, good seeing you, hon. That's okay. I don't take it personally. You already told me. I knew. Thanks for being here. And we'll go out and look at a few. Fair enough? Makes sense? And then make the appointment. Now, I want to give you a separate handout that makes this a little bit easier for you going forward. And I'll give Walt credit for this because he developed this little inquiry track that takes everything I've told you up to this point and put it on a single page, which I like doing. Oh, would you give one of those to Aiden? I think I gave you two there. Ryan.
I know Mike is gonna complain about the handouts, but I feel like everybody's taking notes and it's working, So I do appreciate it.
My pleasure. This little inquiry track, if you're running ads and stuff, how could I possibly have done that? Vahid said he wants to hand these out for me, so thanks, Vahid, you're the man. And if you haven't signed in, anybody that came in late, be sure to sign in. Anyway, this inquiry track takes basically what we've talked about and put it on one page, and so now when the call comes in, until it becomes ingrained where you don't even have to look at it, this is a handy little tip. Oh, you're greeting? Yep. Thank you for calling. What can I tell you about that property? Do you mind holding for a few moments? By the way, what's your name? 6 stock questions. I already know what they are. Anyway, this track is concise, and it makes this whole conversation. Again, these are gold-plated opportunities. When they contact you to ask about property, this is a gold-plated opportunity. You want to pull out all the stops to make sure you connect with these people, and once you've confirmed that they really are potential buyers. So, here's the inquiry track that I just handed you, and hopefully this will make things a little bit easier for you. How are we doing time-wise? 12, okay, we're good. Going to talk a little bit about if it's a listing lead. You had the conversation, and they've said, yeah, we're looking for that special house, yeah, and yes, we do have a home that we need to sell in order to buy. And when I ask how long has it been on the market, and they say it hasn't, it's not on the market, we're waiting till we find the house that we really want before we put our house on the market, because we don't want to be homeless. And I can understand that concept. I want to point out to that prospect that what they're proposing to do does not work. And if it does work, here's 2 things that will happen. The approach they're planning to use, waiting to find the home that they want to buy before they list the home they need to sell. I said, folks, one of the problems you got is the approach you're planning to use, best case scenario, is going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars. That approach is going to cost you a lot of money to do it the way you're proposing to do it. And people say, well, how can that be? I mean, how would it cost us a whole lot more money to do it that way? I'm going to use this to close. Why don't we do this, folks? Instead of coming into the office, since you have a home you need to sell in order to buy, why Why don't I come and meet with you at your home? I don't mind. No problem. No obligation. Sit down, kind of go over what you've got there, give you an idea of what you could net at the close of escrow, bring some properties for you to review, talk a little bit about how we can formulate a game plan, because I can tell you, and those of you that have been in this business for a while know exactly what I'm talking about. The buyer conversion concept. Here's the problem you've got when people want to find the house they want to buy before they list the house they need to sell. Well, I'm going to skip through this because I'm going to talk to you about buyer conversion. Buyer conversion is, I always like it, the home they currently have is a nice home, but the one that they want to buy is even bigger and fancier and everything else. It's not always the case. Sometimes people buy down. Here's the problem that people have, and when I sit down and I illustrate this, they get it most of the time. I'm making up numbers here, but just to give you an idea, the current home that they have is, and by the way, these are obviously old numbers, but it doesn't matter. You know, by the way, that's $400,000 house 3 years ago was $400,000. Today it's 800 or 9 or whatever. I mean, what's happened in the market is crazy. Okay, but this is the home they currently own. And here's the house that they want to buy. Okay, so folks, home you currently own is worth $400,000 fair market value. And the home that your dream home, the one you're thinking about with the view at the end of the cul-de-sac, is going to be $600,000. Now, I have represented buyers and sellers on both sides of this equation countless times over the years. I've had buyers say, well, yeah, can we make them a contingent offer? It's a dream house. Can we write an offer contingent on the sale of our house? I said, we can do that. We have forms for everything. We can do that. But keep in mind, from the seller's perspective, you're telling the seller you want them to accept your offer contingent on the sale of your home that's not even on the market for sale yet. Can you see the problem? And here is the reality of it. I've represented the seller of the new house. I've represented the $600,000 homeowner who's got the house on the market. And we get an offer from an agent representing the $400,000 home, and it's contingent on the sale of that house not on the market for sale. My seller and I've had the dialogue, well, Larry, what's in it for us to even accept this offer? Well, if they don't get their home sold, nothing. You know, we can structure the COP to where we have the right to continue to market your home for sale. And if we get another offer, we can activate what we generically call the 72-hour clause, and they either have to remove the contingency for the sale of their home and demonstrate that they can perform without selling that home, or we get to kick them out of the way and go with the second offer. So my seller over here says, well, Larry, in that situation, you know, we already talked, we listed the house for $600. They told me, you know, we'd take $575, really, that's our bottom line. But let's see if we can get a little bit more. Let's put it on the market for $6. In a contingent offer, my seller of the $600,000 house says, well, if we're going to take a contingent offer, they got to pay full price. They got to pay the full $600,000, or else why would we even mess with it? So yeah, we'd sell it to a $575 for all cash buyer, ready to close right away. But these people, I mean, we're just betting with them that their house is going to sell before ours. So okay, we'll take their contingent offer. We'll continue to market ours for sale, but they got to pay full price. So what they've done already is they've paid $25,000 more for this house. Now, if the present home were already on the market for sale with an accepted offer and in escrow, now that's a strong contingent offer. But contingent on one that's not even on the market for sale, I always like to say it's like going on a date with your brother or your sister. You know, it's not going anywhere. You know, I mean, it's, okay, it'll be fun evening and everything else, but trying to do this just does not work. So, and it gets worse. They finally find this special house that's got everything they're looking for, but this seller's not interested in a contingent offer. They risk losing the dream house. It gets worse. It gets worse. Let's say that because you guys are all so good, you're able to sell the seller of the new house on accepting your buyer's contingent offer. And now this buyer is saying, let's get the house on the market for sale. You know, we have to. We got to get it sold now because we accepted the offer. We found our dream home. Now, this house is worth $400,000. But these people, the new home, they accepted it contingent, and they're going to continue to market the house for sale for a backup offer. And if they get it, they're going to activate the 72-hour clause. And if you can't perform, and you can't because you have to get your home sold in order to buy it, you got to get out of the way. So what that means is the seller, the buyer who's got the current home that they need to sell, they've got to get it to sell quickly. Today's market, not a problem, but in many markets, it can take time. So how do you accelerate the marketing time? Thank you. You got it. That's the only way you can distort the numbers is you got to price it aggressively. So yeah, it's really worth $4, but we're going to have to sell it for $380 in order to get it sold quickly enough so we don't lose the dream house. So we're going to cost ourselves $20 grand on the home we're selling, and we're paying $25 grand more for the house we're buying, and we still risk losing the house. Best case scenario, it's going to cost us $45 grand, and that's if we're able to even keep the deal together. This is reality 101 in real estate. And only because I have it, I've got the time check. 12:20. Okay, I got 10 minutes. I can do this. We had 2 agents working together as a team, did an open house for a property on one of our listing agents in Warmlands. I don't know if any of you know where Warmlands is, part of Vista. But anyway, beautiful home, vacant property, special house, single story, 3-car garage on 2 acres, and vacant. The sellers had already vacated it. Our agents held it open. They weren't related, the 2 agents, they were just friends, and they wanted to do an open house together. They did this open house, and it was on one of our listings. I get a call from them, the 2 agents. They said, hey, Larry, we just had something happen. I said, what happened? We had a husband and wife come into our open house we were doing for Jeff on his listing, and they love it. They want to make an offer on it. And I said, well, great, that's dream come true. He said, but there's a problem. I said, what's the problem? He said, well, first of all, Mrs. Buyer, she's kind of mean. You know, Mr. Buyer's a pretty nice guy, but Mrs. Buyer, she was pretty, and she said, because we asked her, what's your current situation? They owned a home in Oceanside. And I asked them, we asked them, do you need to sell the home in Oceanside in order to buy the one here in Warman? Oh, absolutely. But then Mrs. Buyer said, but let me tell you 2 right now, if you bring up listing my Oceanside house before you get my offer accepted on the Warmlands house, we're not talking to you anymore. We'll find somebody else. Am I clear? And I said, so, and you're calling me because, well, Larry, we want you to go with us. I went, oh, okay. You want me to go with you? Yeah, and tell them. Yeah, because they told us if we brought up listing that house before we make get an offer accepted, they'll never talk to us again. We're not going to do any more business with them. So will you go with us? And I said, sure. When? Today. What time? 6 o'clock. Where's the property? In Oceanside. Great. You know where the Starbucks is there off Carlsbad Village Drive? Yeah, meet me there. We'll have a cup of coffee. Bring the CMA on the Oceanside house. Larry, I don't think you want to bring a CMA. Bring me a CMA on the Oceanside house. Bring a listing contract and everything else. Are you sure you want to do that, Larry? Bear with me. Come on. Let's do this. Okay. So we met there. We went over the CMA, everything else. We walked in, knocked on the door. Mr. Seller answered the door. Big smile. Jamie, Tom, nice seeing you too. You must be Larry. We heard about you as partner and everything else. Come on in. Nice guy. Invites us in, walks us into the house, walks us into the dining room. In the dining room, there's a huge, bigger than normal dining room table. It would accommodate like 8 people for dinner, maybe more. Mrs. Client is sitting at the far end of the table, and she's got paper, pencils, calculator, and she's sitting there like this. And we walked into the door, and she does not flinch. She does not get up or anything. She does not smile, say, nice seeing you again or anything. She handled the introduction. She says, Tom, Jamie, nice to meet seeing you again. You're Larry, right? And I, yes, ma'am, I am. And she goes, okay. And then she starts pointing at her husband. Honey, I want you to sit right here. Tom, you there. Jamie, you right there. Larry, you sit over here. Now, Larry, before you start, I already told them this. Don't talk to us about listing our property with you before you get our offer written and accepted on the property in Warmlands. You got it? And I said, I do get it. They have made that very clear to me. But I would be remiss. I would be failing in my obligation to point out to you how the approach you're thinking of using is going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars and risk losing the Warmlands house that you're in love with. Can I just take a moment and explain that to you? And she goes, okay. Like, okay, hurry up, get it over with. And I just took out, I didn't use this handout, I just took an 8.5 by 11 and I just drew, here's your house, here's the Warmlands house. And I went right through this scenario. The Warmlands people, they're not going to take your contingent offer on your home that's not even in the market for sale unless they get full price. And then they're going to attach a 72-hour clause to it. And if they get another offer, they're going to kick you out. And you run the risk of having to get this property sold at below market value so you don't lose the one you want to buy. I went through this. It took a while. I went through the whole thing. She didn't say a word. And I said, I feel like I have to point this out to you. This is my obligation to you. Can you see the point here? Mr. Client says, I've been trying to tell her that all day long. I'll tell you, if looks could kill, the man was dead on the spot. I mean, she just killed her husband. She gave him a look that I got chills. And then she said, what do you think this house is worth? 2 hours later, we had an offer contingent on the sale of the Oceanside property on the Warmlands property, and we had the Oceanside property listed for sale. And she said, let us know what they say. Let us know what they say. Well, we got the offer accepted. Property was vacant. People had already vacated it. Property was vacant, so that he did accept the offer at full price. And then Jeff, the listing agent, said, we're going to go ahead and market the property, and if we get another offer, we're going to kick you guys out. I explained that to my client, our new clients, and I said, okay, I asked the question. This is a great question you want to get in the habit of asking. Folks, just out of curiosity, what will it do to your plans if they get another offer on the Warmlands house and they activate the 72-hour clause? And she said, well, it would ruin everything. We'd have to, we'll cancel our listing. We're not going to sell the Oceanside house then. If the dream house, if we can't get the dream house, we don't want to sell this house. Okay, folks, I can appreciate your situation. What we need here is a plan B. And they said, a plan B? There's a plan B? There's always a plan B, almost always. Here's plan B. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to contact a lender that I'm working with who specializes in doing, call them it, they got lots of different names, swing loans, gap loans, bridge loans, whatever. We're going to get them to come over and look at your house, get a quick appraisal on it, and get positioned to give us a swing loan, which is nothing more than an equity advance on the equity that you have in the current property that you can move to buy the other property if they activate the 72-hour clause. You can complete the purchase of the Warmlands house, and yeah, you're going to own two houses for a while. The good news is most of these bridge loans, gap loans, whatever, they accrue interest, but you don't make payments on them. When the house in Oceanside sells, then it gets paid off. That's plan B. And she said, well, how much does that cost? I said, worst case scenario, the price of an appraisal. But I think I can get it done ballpark without even incurring the cost. So we had this lender come over. Some of you know him. He's now a realtor. He's no longer a lender. That happens a lot. Patrick Morelli up in Fallbrook. Patrick, he was my swing loan guy back in the day. So Patrick comes over, meets with him, and goes, yeah, we can do this. He gave him a commitment and everything else. Sure enough, 10 days later, I get a call from Jeff. Hey, Larry, we just got another offer, and it's a quick close escrow. We're activating the 72-hour clause. I'm going to send you over a cancellation of contract form. And I said, Jeff, I wouldn't waste your time. we're positioned to go ahead and remove the contingency, move forward. We got a bridge loan already in place. We can close in the 30 days that our contract called for. He goes, really? And I said, yeah. And we did. And that's exactly what happened. And we closed escrow, completed the Warmlands purchase. The Oceanside property was on the market for another week or two, got it into escrow. We only had a bridge loan in place for about 21 days of overlap between the two. And they completed the thing. They got the Oceanside property sold. They got the Warmlands property purchased. They invited all three of us, Jamie and Tom and myself, to come to their housewarming party in the Warmlands house. And this was the lady who was breathing fire when we first met her, and everybody was terrified of her. And she's introducing us to all of her friends at the party and saying stuff like, you know, if it weren't for these people, we wouldn't be having this party today. If it weren't for them, we would never have gotten this house. And it went from, Larry, will you go with us because she's a mean lady and we're going to have a real problem, to where she loved everybody, and they're still in that Warmlands house. So having a plan B is a good thing, but all this dialogue up to this point, I'm preaching to the choir to a lot of you, because I see Tracy nodding when I'm saying stuff about the concept of buyer conversion. She knows this is the reality of it. This is the way it really works. All the rest of you do too. But explaining it to a client this way, to get the appointment, folks, the approach you're using, best case, it's going to cost you a ton of money. Worst case, you're going to lose the dream house that you find. Let's get together. Can I explain how that works? And it does. So I think I used my 10 minutes, didn't I, Emily? Okay.
You did a great job.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you all. I love doing these classes. I love being able to see you guys, look you eye to eye. I'm around, stick around afterwards to answer any additional questions. Just by virtue of the fact that you're here today tells me, it tells Mike, it tells everybody, you're committed to your real estate careers and you're going to take advantage of everything we offer to help you. And Mike's pulling out all the stops and doing everything he can to provide you and me and Walt and all the rest of us that help support you guys all the tools that we can to contribute to your success. So I'm going to give Mike a round of applause. We're done. That's it, guys.